Watched this a few years ago and was blown away at the possibility of what you can create when you work 3D into your workflow. Today, I'm going to talk about an amazing free extension for Blender called bygen that will not only allow you to create this cool looking organic skeleton mesh, but also a ton of other wild looking effects for your 3D characters. Since this channel started by teaching you Adobe Premiere and After Effects, I'm of course going to work these creations into my normal After Effects workflow. So I'll walk you through everything from tracking your scene in After Effects, making your 3D creations in Blender, and then rendering and compositing those 3D creations back into your live action footage. By the way, if you're looking for any plugins, presets, extensions to save you time and create cool effects, my digital asset store is at the top of the description. If you haven't already, click the link below to download Blender for free, then click the second link in the description to download the bygen extension. Bygen was created by a YouTuber named Curtis Holt. I'll leave his channel down below if you'd like to learn more about him and the extension as well. So to install in Blender, go up to Edit Preferences. In the Add-ons tab, go ahead and click Install and load in that zip file that you downloaded from the second link. To see this add-on, go ahead and click the little arrow on the right side near your object menu bin and click on the bygen tab. Let me give you a quick walkthrough. You can click on the thumbnails to see all the available presets that you can apply to your 3D objects. I'll select the default cube here, and I'll just click Apply Selected. It essentially loads in a mix of modifiers and geometry nodes to give you some fast preset looks. If you want to change any of this, you can click on the modifiers tab and mess around with the parameters to tailor everything to your liking. That's the basic rundown of the extension. There's a lot more that you can do with this, so watch the full tut link below if you'd like to learn all the ins and outs. I'm going to focus on creating cool music video looks utilizing this plugin and by utilizing After Effects to Blender workflow. So first, let me show you how to create unique animated characters mixed with bygen preset looks. I'm going to download this free male model from TurboSquid, and then I'll go to mixmo.com and upload my character FBX. I'll apply a dance animation from this free library, and then I'll download that animated model. In Blender, I'll import that file back in, so just go to File, Import FBX, and select your dancing animation. And then I'll select my character here and just start going through some of those bygen presets. They go easily with the rig except for the parametric section. So let me show you some of the combinations you can get, some really cool stuff here. You've got everything from glass shards, leaves, moss, mud, a bunch of different really interesting surface effects. In the structural, you can actually use the sculpting tools to paint on those different effects, which is cool. You also have displacement, which gives you this crazy rippling effect on the skin. And then organic volume effects like this one. And of course, you guys can go into your shader editor and add any crazy shader to match the look of this. Parametric section is some of my favorite stuff like the face ripper, the point cloud effect, and the organic shell that we're going to center this mainly around. Now for the parametric presets, for example, the organic skeleton mesh that I was talking about earlier, for those, all you need to do is apply the modifiers first. Now, before we do that, I'll show you the settings I use to tailor the look because it does look pretty crazy off the start. So once you've applied organic shell, go over to your modifiers tab to see all the different things at work. You want to open up the wireframe modifier and uncheck even so that you don't have all these crazy lines flying around everywhere. Next, I recommend you go to the displace and bump down the strength. I put it from 0.6 to 0.1, and you can see how it goes from this bubbly beehive of a character into this more human-like shape. For the decimate, you can change the angle limit here to raise or lower the detail of all the wires. So if I put it from 20 down to 6, you can see it goes from this more abstract organic sculpture into this more hard shell look, which I thought was really cool. So it's pretty easy. They have a utility button to apply all the modifiers built straight into the extension. So just select your character, scroll down on the extension and select apply all modifiers. Once you've done that, all you need to do is reapply the armature modifier. So just go to the modifiers tab, go and search for armature, and then just click the little dropper and select the rig from Mixmo. You'll see your character snap back into place, and there you go, easy as that. Now I do want to mention, for a lot of these different preset looks, there's tons of modifiers being applied at once. It can be pretty computer taxing, so I recommend you either delete some of the unnecessary modifiers, or whenever you are applying, just be patient and let everything do its thing. Of course, save before you do this so you don't crash and lose work. So to track this into footage, I'm going to download some royalty-free shots from pexels.com. In After Effects, I'll right-click on that footage and I'll 3D track the camera. Once that's done, I'll use that little bullseye selector to right-click and create a track solid wherever I'd like to place my 3D character in this scene. We can use this After Effects to Blender JSON script, which you can download below. There's a full guide on installing and using that. The script allows us to export all this camera data that we just gathered into Blender. So go ahead and run it, and then go ahead and install the Blender add-on to import that data from After Effects into Blender. Once you've done that, you'll see your After Effects camera imported in, and you'll see your track solid that you created and a larger plane here, which you can use as a reference for your footage. So I'll select the large plane and I'll go and switch to the shader editor. I'll go ahead and click Shift A and add in an image texture node, and then I'll plug that into the emission to see our footage. Just go ahead and crank up the frames, check on auto refresh, and if you need to, you can go to the world settings and just bump down the strength a little bit. And just like that, we now have our After Effects setup ready in Blender. All I need to do from here is select the smaller plane. This is the track solid that we set up in After Effects earlier, and we can align whatever 3D object or character we want to composite into our footage on top of that plane. So I'll go ahead and grab my 3D organic skeleton character. I'll click G to move it over to the plane, S to scale it down, and I'll line it all up within the camera view. So for better compositing, I recommend you tweak the lighting, and I recommend you create a shadow catcher shader for the track solid plane, which you can do so by copying this setup here. That'll make it so that our 3D object blends with our real world footage in a more realistic way. When you're ready, you can turn off the reference footage, check on transparent under film in your render settings, and then go ahead and set up a folder in your output settings for your export. Then go up to render animation and let it export. So once that's finished, back in Blender, we can go to our project bin, right click and select import multiple files, navigate to that folder that you specified from Blender that has all of your export files, select the first one, import as footage, and click done. Now the original footage here that I used was 30 frames per second. Anytime you import multiple frames into After Effects, it defaults at 30 frames per second. So if your original footage differs from 30 frames, make sure you right click on your footage, go to interpret main, and you can change the frame rate so that it matches with your original. Like I said before, my original was 30, so I'm good to go. And there you go, an easy way to add unique animated characters into your footage. You have a bunch of preset looks for free that you can customize to your liking. That's part one of this tutorial. Part two, let's talk about getting close to replicating the actual music video look from the beginning. Now I will say there's a lot of difficult steps in preparation that go into a larger budget production like this. There's a behind the scenes video where they talk about all the different steps they use to be able to create this, everything from photogrammetry scanning of the model, capturing the motion using mocap suits, recreating the geometry, and then masking and compositing. Let's try and create a more dumbed down version of that just using After Effects and just using Blender. To do that, I'm going to go to pexels.com, and this time I'm going to search for some footage that's either shot on a tripod so there's no movement, or it has minimal movement that should be easy to track. I also want to look for a shot that has a blank background, so whenever I go in and mask, it'll be easy to manipulate the background and cover up any patches. Once I found that shot, I'm going to go in and right click and track the footage like I did earlier, and then I'll go ahead and use that same script that I used before to transfer that After Effects tracking data back into Blender. So in Blender, I'm going to import in this female head model, which I downloaded for free from TurboSquid. Just like we composited everything before, I'll go ahead and load my footage back onto that plane so I can get a rough look of our reference footage, and then I'll position the female head over top of that track solid to try and get an accurate track. And I'll use that bygen plugin just to give it that skeletal organic mesh. I'll go ahead and render that out and then pop back over into After Effects where we can do some final compositing. Because we're replacing the face here, we need to mask off the face. I'll go ahead and create a simple little mask around the subject's head, and I'll set that mask to subtract. Then I'll right click on that mask and just do a simple track mask so that it follows throughout the footage. Next, I'll select our footage, I'll click Ctrl D to duplicate it, and then I'll right click and freeze frame it. I'll rename this layer to background, and then I'll drag it below our original footage to fill the gap, and I'll just use my masking tool to cut out a piece of the pink background, scale it up, and place it in our gap. You can mess around with the masking feather just to blend this a bit better, and you can even color correct if there is a tiny bit of lighting mismatch. So we should have our background fixed. We should have our actor with her head missing from the mask. Let's go ahead and import back in our footage from Blender and composite that over top. So just like before, right click in your project bin, import multiple files, and find your folder. Select the first, import as footage, and check it out. Not bad, but I didn't like the way that the mask was sort of feathering at the neckline, so I decided to go back into Blender and just create a simple torus shape by clicking Shift A, add mesh torus, and I turned that into a sort of sci-fi looking collar to cover up that neckline. I also imported a brain model just to show what you can do with these 3D objects and placed it within there, and then re-rendered everything, re-imported it back in, and check it out, it looks pretty cool. It goes to show what you can do by mixing your After Effects knowledge with 3D. I think you can create some really amazing things. I think tools like bygen being free are amazing, and I think they should be utilized by you guys and incorporated into your workflow to create some really cool stuff. If you guys did enjoy, slap a like on the video, comment below anything you'd like to see next, subscribe for more stuff like this, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you in the next one.